This is The Raid, exposing the dark world of America's deportation machine. I'm your host, John Carlos Frey. Welcome to the update for the week of November 10th, and as always, I'm going to try to bring you stories that you may not have heard on mainstream media. I scour the internet for stories that are relevant to what we're seeing today with regard to the immigration raids, but are also important for going and seeing the future. I'm trying to bring you stories that you wouldn't normally hear. So here we go. According to the Project on Government Oversight, or POGO, P-O-G-O, a high-ranking and highly scrutinized Border Patrol official has presided over a disproportionate amount of use of force incidents according to an analysis of federal data by POGO and the American University's Investigative Reporting Workshop. Gregory Bovino, who we all may know as the architect of the LA and Chicago raids, the chief of the Border Patrol's El Centro sector as well in California, who has been in charge of this controversial Department of Homeland Security raids in Chicago and Los Angeles, as I've said, has been leading federal agents accused of excessive violence against migrants, protesters, journalists, and others in operations. A federal judge just last week said these agents' use of force in Chicago shocks the conscience. So this is Gregory Bovino, who is the sector chief in El Centro. To justify their use of force, Bovino and other senior DHS leaders have cited that assaults against federal law enforcement. He told congressional staffers in 2023 that the use of force by agents when agents are assaulted does happen. But listen to this. So what we're seeing in Chicago and Los Angeles started in El Centro, and that's what this report is basically about. Federal data from the last 4 fiscal years show that under Bovino's leadership in El Centro, Border Patrol agents have used force far more often than they have faced assault. For every assault that they have faced, El Centro agents have used force over 3.6 times more, according to the data. In El Centro's data reflects that the highest ratio of use of force to assault of any Border Patrol sector in the nation, far higher than other 19 sectors and the Border Patrol overall. This is what it means. During those 4 years that this study was conducted, there were over 300 incidents of agents using force against migrants out of El Centro and 83 incidents of assaults against agents. So it's almost a 4-to-1 ratio. Border Patrol agents are going to attack, assault migrants, even if they themselves are not under threat. This is actually in a report, and this has been written down, and it's provable. So what we're seeing in Chicago and Los Angeles is not a surprise. These are tactics that have been used for a long time. And Bovino is the worst offender of them all, according to this report. In another story from NPR, foreigners seeking visas to live in the United States might be rejected if they have certain medical conditions, including diabetes or obesity, under a Thursday directive from the Trump administration. The guidance directs visa officers to deem applicants ineligible to enter the United States for several new reasons, including age or the likelihood that they might rely on public benefits. The guidance says that such people could become a public charge, a potential drain on U.S. resources, because of their health issues or because of their age. While assessing the health of potential immigrants has been a part of the visa application process for years, including screening for communicable diseases such as tuberculosis and obtaining vaccine history, experts said that the new guidelines greatly expand the list of medical conditions to be considered and give visa officers more power to make decisions about immigration based on an applicant's health status. The new guidelines mandate that immigrants' health be a focus in the application process. The guidance applies to nearly all visa applicants, but is likely to be used only in cases in which people seek to have some form of permanent residency here in the United States. Here's what it says. Here's the directive. This is from the Trump administration about immigrants who want to come to the United States. Quote, you must consider an applicant's health, certain medical conditions, including, but not limited to, cardiovascular disease, respiratory disease, cancers, diabetes, metabolic disease, neurological disease, and mental health conditions, can require hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of care. End quote. That's what the directive says. Visa officers were also directed to determine whether applicants have the means to pay for medical treatment without help from the U.S. government. Does the applicant have adequate financial resources to cover the costs of such care over his entire expected lifespan without seeking public cash assistance or long-term institutionalization at government expense, the directive reads. They will not let you into this country if you can't afford to pay for your health care and if you're sick and if you're old. Good luck with that one. Another story, which is tragic. Shocking. According to FloridaPolitics.com, families flee Florida schools fearing ICE raids and deportation threats. Families flee Florida schools. Education leaders who are watching how immigration policies affect schools expect classrooms to get emptier every year. Still, this year, they were caught off guard by falling enrollment rates in some of Florida's larger districts. In Orange County, Florida, the school district saw an enrollment decrease of around 6,600 students this year, more than double the 3,000 students the district predicted would leave for charter schools. The majority of unexpected departures were children in immigrant families. Surprised. The district's total enrollment is just over 182,000. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents had been blocked from detaining people in sensitive areas like schools and churches since 2011. The Biden administration expanded those restrictions 4 years ago, but immediately after Trump took office, the policy was rolled back in January, and immigration agents got the green light to operate on school campuses. Orange County schools saw sharp increases in absenteeism, particularly in schools with large immigrant populations. I don't even have a comment for that. This one is complicated, but I think if you stick with me here, listen to these numbers because they're shocking. According to The Economist, President Trump's mass deportation campaign is just getting started. I even hate reading that sentence. Mass deportation was never going to be achieved in 1 year. The money and the manpower required to round up thousands, let alone millions of undocumented immigrants would take time to secure. But President Donald Trump's first year in office has laid the groundwork. In 2026, a dollop of cash from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act will fund more immigration agents, detention centers, removal flights, and surveillance technology. The Brennan Center for Justice has broken down these numbers about the increase that we're about to see in 2026. And here we go. There's a lot of numbers here, and I'll try to sort of weed you through all of the process and make sense of all of this if I can. The biggest piece of the pie for enforcement operations in the United States will go to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. That's ICE. That's what ICE stands for. To arrest, detain, and deport immigrants, Congress gave ICE $75 billion over 4 years, approximately $18.7 billion each year more than they had. Added to the $10 billion Congress had already appropriated for ICE for the fiscal year of 2025. ICE now has $28.7 billion at its disposal this year. That $28.7 billion figure is nearly triple ICE's entire budget for the previous year of 2024. They've had a 300% increase since the Big Beautiful Bill was passed. 2/3 of ICE's funding, $45 billion over 4 years, will be used to detain immigrants, potentially more than 100,000 people per year. The $11.25 billion added to ICE's annual detention budget is a 400% increase from last year and exceeds the Department of Justice's budget request for fiscal 2026 for the entire federal prison system, which holds 155,000 people. Criminals and immigrants, huge dollars now. The law explicitly allows ICE to build more facilities to jail families, often mothers with children. The bill also allocates billions of dollars to Customs and Border Protection. That's the Border Patrol, which already received a $20 billion appropriation for fiscal year 2025. The July funding bill gives CBP almost $65 billion more over 4 years, nearly $47 billion of which is earmarked, I didn't even know this, for continuing construction of a physical wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. More border wall at $47 billion. This is a stark increase from the amount allocated to the border wall during Trump's first administration when Congress appropriated $5 billion. I don't know where all this money is coming from or if this is debt. This enforcement infrastructure billion-dollar boondoggle here is out of control. Thank you for listening to The Raid, available wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about our guests and the subjects we cover, please visit our website at theraidpodcast.org.